to Chats with Harry Rinker. I'm Greg Watkins. I'm with WorthPoint, and on the line I have Harry Rinker, and Harry needs no introduction. So, hello, Harry.
Hey, hi, how are you? Boy, this is kind of fun. This is our second WorthPoint chat, and here I am in sunny Florida. We did the one last week from my office up in Kentwood, Michigan, but I'm down here in Florida. The Davenport University baseball team is on spring break down here, and I am the academic coach for the baseball team. One may wonder what that has to do with antiques and collectibles, and the answer is absolutely nothing. But I like these kids, and we're down there. I'm down here watching them play. We're 5-1 so far. We've got 5 more games to play, but gets Harry out in the sun. You may notice that my facial color seems to reflect that of my shirt because I'm a little sunburned, actually.
Well, you look good, Harry. We're here in Atlanta at the 28th floor of the WorthPoint Towers. The wind is rattling the windows, and but it's a clear, cold day.
Well, I have to tell you that this is the 5th season I've been down here with the baseball team, and for once, I am not going to wear my winter coat. So that part's very nice.
That's great.
It's a lot of fun, and it's great to be out there with young people. I wish we could attract as many young people easily to the antiques and collectibles trade as we can to playing baseball. But we do need to get young people involved in the antiques and collectibles trade, and that's a subject that's talked a lot about in the trade, Greg, about how do we attract young people. I mean, it's very clear right now that young people simply are not collecting what the older people are collecting. But the good news is that they are collecting, and we have to be sensitive to that. There used to be a time when antique dealers kind of felt, well, we'll tell people what to collect, and they better collect what we tell them and what we offer to sell them because that's the good stuff. Well, starting at the beginning of the 21st century, that changed. And now today, if you want to survive in the antiques and collectibles business, you have to give young people what they want. And what do they want? They want decorative stuff. They want modern stuff. They want things post-1980. They want what they know. They don't care about pretty much what their parents own or their grandparents own. And they want what they have to be somewhat functional. Not that they have to use it all the time, but it has to have a kind of functional quality about it. And that's changed a lot of the way things are going. In fact, I had a wonderful experience. I usually try to avoid antique shops, especially when my wife is with me. Well, mistake, Greg. I went down to Winter Park, a wonderful, by the way, I should mention where I am in Florida. I'm in Altamont Springs, just north of Orlando. Linda and I have a condo down here. Bought it for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is I'm within a half-an-hour drive of Disney, to which I have a season pass, which is great. But anyway, we went down to Winter Park. My wife wanted to go shopping for a dress. And so we parked the car just in front of this antique shop. And, I should have known better. I should have walked by it. But I said, it'd be interesting to see what's down there. And so in I went. Now, you talk about, do you ever get the feeling that somehow there's an overarching guiding hand that's pushing you, in a certain direction and so forth? Well, I go in there, and on the floor are a bunch of coverlets, jacquard coverlets, the ones that were woven in the jacquard machines. And I look down on it, and there is one in really not the best of condition, a red and a blue one and white one. But the title block says Ohio, and doesn't the name read Sarah Rinker? Now, I have to
really.
Not one of my relatives, not one of my relatives at all. But man, it's like I have to have this. So now I hold it up and I see it's all faded. All the red is faded. And then I get it up on light. It's got little holes in the bottom moth holes. When you inspect a textile, one of the things you should do is get it outside or where there's light, bring it out, spread it out and get behind it so you can look through it. And you'd be amazed at how moth holes and other problems you'll see that you can't see visually, because one of the things we know from visual things is your eye wants to correct any mistake that it sees. And so it corrects those mistakes. So you got to get it in a way where your eyes can't be fooled by the thing. Well, we finally negotiated a price I could live with just to get another Rinker object in my collection. I mean, how many Rinkers are there out there, really? So I haven't done the research to find out who Sarah Rinker is. I know she's not in my family, and I suspect she's from the Virginia Rinkers, and we won't cast aspersions on the Virginia Rinkers as opposed to the Pennsylvania Rinkers. But nevertheless, well, the mistake was, as I'm doing this, my wife is saying, look at those nice glasses. Look at those nice teapots. Look at this. Look at that. Well, I have to tell you, I may have walked out with a correlate. Melinda walked out with a Flow Blue teapot. She wound up with a hand-painted early 20th century creamer and sugar, which we overpaid, a Fostoria bowl, and then she found this cut glass water. I saw we need a water pitcher, she told me. I said, we don't need a water pitcher. Yes, we do. So she found this cut glass one, and I said, look, there's those pattern glass ones over there, and they're another 50 years older, and they're cheaper. Well, I got away with that one. I didn't on the Flow Blue picture. But I had a nice chance to talk to the antique dealer, and it was a tragedy because the Flow Blue teapot we bought, which was in, I would say in C8, C9, I mean, it was really in good condition. $225. I mean, we're talking about a teapot that a number of years ago was $450 to $650. I mean, that Flow Blue market is totally tanked. And as a result, why, Linda says, well, gee, that's cheap. Well, the problem is when you go shopping in an antique shop and you see this item over here and that's cheap, and this item over here and that's cheap. So you buy them and you buy this one and you buy that one. And then you buy another cheap object, another cheap object. You know what happens when you add up all the prices? They're not cheap. So anyway, we walked out, and I had a wonderful chat with the owner of the shop. But I mean, he was just telling me he had some wonderful art pottery from the 20s and 30s. He says, I can't give it away. And Linda bought this gorgeous Fostoria centerpiece bowl, serving bowl. We paid $30. I mean, we're talking again a bowl that was $60, $65 a number of years ago. And so it's really interesting to see the poor guy trying to survive. Now, did he have reproductions? Yep. Did he have some newer stuff in there? You bet. He's just, and I have to tell you, I don't know how he could have gotten anything more in that store because it was cramped back, but his attitude was, man, if you want something, I'll have it here to sell it to you. The interesting thing when I was in there, I know it seems like we're talking forever about this, but the situation is that, when you go out antiquing, the question is, what do you learn? What do you take away from the experience? Well, he had a case in there. It said Royal Dalton figurines, 60% discount, right? Except they were all book valued. So, the one that he had priced at $250, and then you get 60% off that, so you pay $100. Well, that's what you pay for it in eBay. So you always have to be careful of these sale doors. So the one I loved was 75% off all Hummel prices. And I said to the guy, I said, well, you got this whole case full of Hummels. Are you selling it? He says, every once in a while, somebody comes in and buys one. And that's the interesting thing about antiques and collectibles. People think that, when nobody wants them anymore, they eventually get down to the point where they may absolutely be worthless. The truth is there's always a bottom feeder price. And for Hummel figurines, it's about $15 to $25. And if you took some of the discounts off the prices he had, you'd get some of them for $20, $25. So, I mean, he was doing all right. So it had a nice chat. Well, I got her out of there finally, but then I got her to the dress shop, and that was far more disastrous than the antique store. So,
yes, but you can have an opinion about the antiques. You can't have an opinion about the dresses.
Well, yes, I can. In fact, I always tell people, Craig, that there are three things to asking me a question. The first one is, if you ask the question, I assume you want me to answer it. Now, I have to tell you that because you're going to ask me some questions, and also we're going to encourage WorthPoint subscribers to send questions in that we can talk about on these chats too, right? And so the second thing is, there's nothing in this trade I don't have an opinion about. In fact, there's nothing I don't have an opinion about, this trade or otherwise. And then the third thing to ask me a question is, if you don't want to know my opinion, don't ask your question. That's my comment about it. No, but she got herself a nice dress. But there was another interesting aside to this. We went into a craft shop that was going out of business, and 70% discount. Now, they're not going to jack up the prices because we walked in the shop and they were mostly selling cases and case stands, but there was one piece of jewelry left. that my wife really liked, and I did too, actually. It's a contemporary jewelry artisans, and I think sometimes people don't understand the fun of owning, just some good contemporary designer stuff too. So we finally negotiated a price for it, and I said, "Well, I said I won't," but I said to the woman, "I said I'm not going to buy it if I don't know who made it." I mean, because I know you should look at aesthetics and not worry about that, but my wife has a nice contemporary jewelry collection. She says, "No, I can tell you who made it," and her name was Marita Strauss. She's up in Asheville, North Carolina. Well, anyway. I said, "Well, how do you know that?" She said, "Well, it's signed over here." I said, "No, it's not." I said, I'm there raking it under light, trying to see the signature. And finally, she said, "Oh, there's a touch mark here." And sure enough, so my wife says to her, "Get the loop out." And what am I wasn't planning to go and take it. I didn't have my loop in my pocket. So the woman said, "No, we sold that already when we were closing the store out." But there was a touch mark there. and they gave me the name, and we went up on the woman's website and saw it. In fact, I talked to her today. Linda has a stick pin collection, and I often have contemporary jewelry artists make stick pins for Linda's collection. So I just talked to the gal and said, "Hey, bought this really great pin, and I really like your work. Would you consider designing a stick pin for Linda?" So we're talking about that right now. But I mean, that's how one thing leads to another. Mostly an empty wallet for me, I must say, but nevertheless. Well, anyway, we talked a lot about it. We talked a lot about it so far. But,
right.
One of the things we want to do is encourage WorthPoint subscribers to send in questions, right? So that we can talk about them here on the chat. And they can also send pictures of objects that we can talk about here on the chat. And a WorthPoint subscriber did send Will a picture of an object, right? A WorthPoint subscriber did send Will a picture of an object, a little.
Oh, yes.
Right? Yeah. Can we take a look at that?
Pull it up here.
I think we have it in the queue here. Now,
here it comes.
Subscriber wanted to know, what is it? How old is it? Whatever. Let's blow it up a little bit if we can. And no, not that much. Can we blow the whole image up or just? All right. Okay. Well, that's
working on that, or it's you.
All right. We'll take her as she is. Now, the first thing is. Now, Greg, you took my course on authenticating, right?
Right.
Okay, tell me all the things that are wrong with this picture. I'll put you on the spot.
You're going to put me on the spot.
What's the first rule of authenticating? If it looks new, right?
Right. If it looks new, it's probably new. So it does look like it. It does not look aged at all.
Yeah, that's
so either it
looks very new, and that's a kind of a tip-off. The other thing is that one of the things we talked about in the authenticating class was developing shape vocabulary and form vocabularies. And so here is a figurine that's supposed to be Austrian or German in origin from one of the factories in the 18th century, and it doesn't have that quality look to it. It's not a typical. It's similar to, but not a typical form that you would find. If anything, the little pooty, and this is the name of the game. You got to learn how the auction houses in New York deal with this. If you say Cupid-like figure, that's cheap. But if you say pooty, that's expensive. So here you have this little chubby pooty here, and the problem is she's too darn chubby. There is a lot of detail in the face. It may look like there's a lot of detail in the face, but compared to what was coming out of the Meissen and Nymphenburg and Furstenberg and other factories in the 18th century, this is terrible. Now, let's blow it up and take a look at the lid or that pot section of that. Well, you can see here, see the lack of detail here? Like the hair is like painted on lines. I mean, come on, if that was an 18th century piece, that would look like hair. And so that's a dead giveaway. But let's go look at the glazing on the other part of the piece if we can. Can we do that? No, that's the top of her head. See, I'm doing it to challenge you to get, okay, now, all right, good. Now, in ceramics, all glaze is above the paint. You can't put gold gilding, or excuse me, all gold gilding is above the paint, above the glaze. Sorry, we'll get it right yet. All gold gilding is above the glaze. And the reason for that is that you can't glaze over gold and fire it. It comes out muddy brown. So now, if this piece was 200 years old and people dusted it and cared for it, even if they didn't use it, but they just dusted it, two things would happen. First, there would be loss of gold. I mean, come on. Every time a dust rag, even if it's clean, still has that fiber to it, and if it's dusted and they don't clean it off, dust is an abrasive, and so you would expect to see wear at certain points on the piece, and there is no wear whatsoever. And when there's no wear and aging characteristics, man, you got trouble. The other thing too about this piece is that gold should mellow over time. You know, a lot of colors have what we call a mellowing effect. And so when you look at a piece where the gold gilding is A, not worn at all, and B, shiny, that's a real danger point. Now, it is possible to take some of these pieces from the 60s, 70s, and 80s and expose them to air and allow them, the gold to mellow down a little bit. But again, there's no gold loss. Now, you know, we always talk about examining a piece from all the sides. And so we're looking at this piece, we're seeing the front and the back and the left and the right, but, you know, it's got a top, and we saw part of the top too. But now we got to take a look at the bottom. And this is another case of really knowing what we're doing. But let's get the bottom of this piece up here right now. Now, first of all, oh, no, that's good. Where you have it there. Don't worry about the mark. I'm more interested in what you're seeing besides the mark on there. Yep, that's it. No 18th or 19th century piece had that type of bottom attached to it. It just doesn't exist. And this is, once again, knowing how to authenticate stuff, knowing how to handle things, knowing how to deal with them. And so this isn't typical of any 18th, 19th century piece, but it is absolutely typical of mid-20th century reproductions, especially ones done immediately after the war. And then there is that rather weird-looking maker's mark. Now, if you put that in the WorthPoint marks, you're not going to find it. You might find marks similar to it from some of those 18th century pottery places, but you won't find this one, because this is a pseudo mark. It's meant to look like an old mark, but it was brand new to the piece. So the final analysis when you look at this thing is, what the heck do you have? Well, what you have is a 1950s, 60s knockoff. Well, you don't want to call them knockoffs. Let's call it a stylistic copy. You won't find, we don't use the word reproduction for it, because it's not an exact copy of a period piece. It's a stylistic copy of a period piece, and we call those stylistic copies copycats. It wasn't meant to be sold as an antique or there, but unfortunately, a number of these pieces did hit the marketplace, and they may have had a paper label on the bottom, or some unscrupulous dealer may have picked it up and ran with it and said it was older, and somebody might have believed them. Unfortunately, they didn't have my authenticating course, but the name of the game is, that's fun for what now. Once you know what it is, then you can value it. And, you know, right now it's a fun $35 to maybe $50 piece for just decorative purposes and conversational purposes. You know, it's always helpful, by the way, we might mention this as people start sending us in pictures to talk about here on the air, to put some kind of a measure in there, whether it's a dollar bill or a quarter or $100 bill if you want us to be nicer, whatever. But this is one of the problems where we get a lot of photographs in and we don't have a way to know their size. I'm assuming it's about 6-7 inches high, maybe even a little bit smaller than that, but that's about right. There was a company called Lefton that brought a lot of these things in from Japan, but I don't think this is a Lefton piece. I think this came out of the Dresden area or one of those areas after the war. May well have been in a PX, something brought back by a GI, although imported too in the middle range department stores and jewelry shops and sold as a decorative piece. So there you go with that one, right? And you see, Greg, this is one of the fun things that we have with all of these objects here, and that is that we can learn a lot from them, not just, you know, that's why when people say, what is it? How much is it worth? You know, I want to know the story behind the object. How was it made? What can we learn for it? And that's why I think when you're getting involved in the antiques and collectibles trade, the fun thing to do is to see what you can learn. Speaking of learning, this summer in July 2016, Antiques and Collectibles Summer Camp. Leave your kids at home. Come to camp yourself. The Institute for the Study of Antiques and Collectibles doing 3 two-day courses this summer. We're doing a course on researching antiques and collectibles. This is an outgrowth of the authenticating course we did a year ago. We're doing a course on paintings, prints, and watercolors, something all people in the trade encounter, and we're trying to figure out what it is and how to identify them and where are the best research sources and so forth. And then, of course, the last two-day course is toys, games, and puzzles, of which I know nothing about, but which I will be an expert on by the summer. No, I love toys, games, and puzzles, and so we have that information on WorthPoint site and on my website, www.harryrinker.com. That's www.harryrinker.com. Click on Institute. Information about the courses, registration form is up there. Enough of that publicity and commercial. Let's see. You didn't get to ask a question at all this week.
Well, considering this is the first live broadcast, we'll probably have our questions next week.
All right. Well, speaking of the fact that it is a live broadcast, we're going to mention people. We're going to do a number of different things during these chats. First of all, we're going to look at objects and have fun analyzing them. I'm going to talk about what's going on out in the trade as far as I can see. And eventually we're going to look at some things that are happening in the trade. And there was a story in Antique Week. Now, I have a lot of favorite trade papers. Antique Week, here it is. This is the February 22nd edition of Antique Week. And what I like about Main Antique Digest and Antique Week are their trade papers that cover the whole waterfront, not just auction reports and not just good news reports, but they often have some very good stories that allow us to look at things. I'm looking at the Central edition. The Antique Week comes with a Central and an Eastern edition, and then it has a National edition. But this is the February 22nd, 2016 edition, and it says, art pulled from sale when library claimed it's stolen property. Now, it says lawyers for the oldest American-Hungarian organization have launched an investigation to reclaim a valuable Hungarian artist painting that disappeared in 1992 and last year appeared in a New Jersey auction. This is a story by Jim Rutledge, by the way. The American-Hungarian Library and Historical Society has filed a lawsuit against the estate of a prominent Manhattan restaurateur after the Historical Society learned last summer that a painting by Hungarian artist Vilmos Ava Novak was being sold by the family of the owner of the restaurant. Well, why is this important? Because one of the things that people do not understand is there is no statute of limitations on theft of art, or any antique or collectible for that matter. If an antique and collectible is stolen, in theory, the people should file a report, as did this organization. But the truth of the matter is, if you can prove that that object was taken from an owner without payment, and you can make a strong case for that, it doesn't make any difference if you find it 1 year later, or 5 years later, or 15 years later, or 25 years later. I mean, I had a interesting situation when I was the director of the Historical Society of York County. There was a gentleman over in Lancaster County who would order thefts. He would go to a historical society, see something he'd like, and then he'd hire a burglar to rip it off. And then they would have it stolen, and he would pay the burglar for it, and he'd put it down in his basement. So one day when I was there, I got a call from the police in Lancaster County saying, are you missing any Proctor? Those are those birth and baptismal certificates from the Pennsylvania German Society. And I said, well, we had a couple taken a few years ago. In fact, in the main museum, they unscrewed the glass of the display case and stole them. We didn't have security cameras at the time. And by gosh, he says, well, we just got a whole bunch of them. And a lot of this stuff seems to be from local historical societies. And so you want to come over? And well, sure enough, we got them back. But no statute of limitations on theft of our stuff. And this is, but this is another reason why, if you own this stuff, you ought to photograph it. I mean, I just bought a big Nikon camera with an auto micro Nikkor lens and so forth, and I am in the process of photographing everything I've got in Michigan, which may mean 3 years from now we'll talk about my being done, but well, I'm doing it for another reason too, and that is that Linda has no idea what I have, and it's not that I'm getting younger, nor am I planning to die for that matter. But the truth of the matter is, Linda needs to know what I have and what to do with it to maximize her return if something happens to me and I haven't gotten rid of it in the interim. And this is becoming a bigger and bigger responsibility. I should tell people they should do it for their kids, but their kids won't care anyway, but the spouses usually do. And so as a result of all of that, I'm starting to photograph the stuff and getting it organized. By the way, that reminds me, we always like to share some really good tidbit information here on these chats too. There is a wonderful program called Recollector, RECOLLECTOR, Recollector. And if you go up to recollector.com, you should find that program. It's less than $100. I think it's like 59 or 60 bucks. And that is the best program to organize stuff that you can put photographs down in it. Now, I am in the process of trying to learn it. And I'm not telling you I've been totally successful. But the thing about it is the guy provides, free phone conversation, and he can talk you through it. I had him on my What You Got radio show as a guest. I am determined by summer to have that program under my belt and knowing how to use it. And I am excited about it. I'm not going to create one from Excel at my age. I just have to find one that works. But this one seems to be wonderful, and you can cross-reference it and cross-file it and do multiple collections. And so I'm excited about the prospect of getting a whack at it.
Okay, is it this one here, Harry, recollector.net?
Oh, recollector.net. Yeah, there it is. Good for you. 49 bucks.
Yes.
Absolutely. This guy is a genius in terms of doing it. Now, he started out working with maps and so forth. And so, you have to add fields and work in there. But what's nice about it, it's an unlimited amount of space. And so you can do a tremendous amount of stuff up there. And I've recommended it to a number of people, and I'm going to recommend it to the people that are watching this, recollector.net, not .com, recollector.net. And as I said, I'm in the process of trying to learn it, and I'm going to be called. The poor guy is going to get phone call after phone call from me until I figure out how to do it. But he told me that's part of the deal. Well, 49 bucks, you couldn't talk to me for 50 minutes. I mean, oh man. So I mean, that's terrific, actually. Well, we're getting near the end of this program already. It's hard to believe we've spent a half an hour gabbing here, but we have. What do we want to say about WorthPoint? You've got some interesting news on WorthPoint. You made a big change this week with the mark.
Well, we've had a couple of things come up. But first, WorthPoint has added, or we've surpassed the 30 million item mark in the Worthpedia. So if you're looking up your items, you've got something that your grandmother left you and you're not sure what it is, you have 30 million chances to hit it right with what we have in the Worthpedia. So that's one of the big things that we've got right there.
But you've made some huge improvements in the mark situation too. You moved them over, and that's really, that mark section is becoming really a major research tool.
Yes, the what used to be called marksandlibrary.com, which is our database of marks, maker's marks, shop marks, autographs, symbols, and patterns, glass patterns, china patterns, things like that, has been folded into WorthPoint proper. So it's not a separate site anymore, and you can purchase a subscription to the marks and the digital library right within the site. And if you wanted to package it with your WorthPoint membership, we've got a nice deal that you can get that subscription either monthly, quarterly, or annually with discounts for the longer terms. And so there's about 90,000 maker's marks and patterns, symbols, and this could be anything from that faux mark that you were showing on the B. Arthur Putty there, to military medals and silver flatware. The patterns on the handles, you can search for those, and we are working on a system where you will be able to take a photograph of your item and then match it with something in our database. and so you won't even have to use keywords anymore.
Right. Well, I have to tell you, the reason I keep going in this business is the digital revolution is going to change things big time. And, I just got a question from one of my Rinker on collectibles, the weekly column that I write, which is on WorthPoint as well. And one of the questions was, why do antique price guides only do high-end stuff anymore and not the ordinary and middle range of the market? Well, the answer is because people aren't using print price guides, but WorthPoint covers the whole waterfront. So, I mean, there we go. Well, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to say goodbye. I got another baseball game to go to this evening. And we do want to mention that we are going to be doing this as much as we can every week. We're going to try to pick a time. I think it's going to be Tuesday afternoons. But if we switch off of that time, we'll let everybody know, and we'll let everybody know about next week as well. So we hope people will watch us as we film this live. We hope they'll even email you some questions, Greg, and that this will become a feature every week that people check out.
Right. Well, we'll work around your baseball schedule, and if you have a item that you'd like to have Harry look at, you can email community@worthpoint.com. Send some photographs and all the information that you know about it, where you got it, where it came from, and based on that stuff, Harry will divine what you've got. Hopefully.
Yes, I'm going to buy a Halos for next week. No, but anyway, great talking with you. We'll do it again next week.
All right. Well, that sounds fun, Harry. We'll see you then. Oh. All right. Little technical difficulties. We'll get this here.
All right. So we're still on the air.
Yeah. Here we go. All right.
I got to
Bye, Harry.
I don't sing. Cut me off.
So long. All right, we're clear.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I thought that went well. You just have to live with me talking forever, but put me in front of a screen in 30 minutes is not a problem.
That's right.
We covered a lot of good territory today again.
Yeah, I think that was good, and we've got the teapot and the turntable for next time.
Yep. And
unless somebody emails with a live question, and we'll supersede those.
Yeah. Yes, of course. But we just keep them in the bank, and I'll try to give you a little bit better warning if I'm going to talk about a story out of a trade paper or something under the circumstances.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all right. And if you want to mention something like the recollector thing.
Well, that just came up. I didn't, that you'll have to deal with the out of the blue sometimes.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, okay, send me a link to this again. Let me know how you're going to promote this on the site, if you would, please.
I will. It is recollector.com and .net together.
Okay.
When I searched it came up .net, but it's either one.
It's okay. We'll take it.
No, actually, no, it is only .net. The other one, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, enjoy the ball game.
Well, now what you should do though is write to that guy and tell him what we did, and maybe you can wind up getting a workable copy of it or something in exchange.
Yeah. We'll see if we can do some kind of trade.
Okay. You be well, my friend.
All right.